And live. Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite truck driver in the whole wide world. It's Bitcoin Ben here for the Patreon show, also known as What the Hell Are They Doing to Us show. We got to jump into the smart grid. What the hell are they doing to us show? This is crazy. We live in a world now that we have to do shows on what the hell our government is doing to us now. Our founding fathers are rolling over in their graves. My grandfather's rolling over in his grave. C'est la vie. All right, let's jump right in here. All right. Now, to understand the smart grid, you have to understand the structure. So we are going to go over the smart grid structure, what it is, what it entails, and what it means. And then I'm going to interpret it for you and accurately name as we go along what it really is. Let me share a screen here. Put myself down here. All right. The smart grid and how it works. Here we go.
What would you do if your electricity was suddenly cut? What if you didn't have power for days or weeks? What if no one in the city or the state where you live had any power either? The possibility of a massive, extended blackout may sound far-fetched, but recent events show there are reasons for concern. In February 2021, an electric grid failure in Texas caused more than 4.5 million homes and businesses to lose power. Months later, wide-scale droughts and wildfires threatened the western U.S. with rolling blackouts. In 2021, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave our energy sector a C- grade. It stated that the majority of the nation's grid is aging, with some components over a century old, far past their 50-year life expectancy, and others, including 70% of transmission and distribution lines, are well into the second half of their lifespans. But what is the power grid exactly? And how might making it smart help to protect us all from the shock of widespread power failure? The grid is a chain of interconnected machines spanning North America. Power moves down that chain from generators, such as turbines and solar arrays, to very high voltage transmission lines, to lower voltage distribution networks, to your outlets, lights, and electric vehicle charging station. Grid operators have to constantly monitor supply and demand to make sure they're equal. If there's an imbalance, it can end up damaging power plants. To avoid that, utilities can respond in various ways, like so-called load shedding, automatically disconnecting some people's power. Or if supply and demand get really misaligned, generate.
Wait a second. Did she just say automatically shutting off people's power? Automatically shutting off people's power. Gee, I wonder who will be labeled shut-offable.
operators may turn off to avoid damage, which can lead to a chain reaction of cascading outages or a blackout. With new energy sources such as wind and solar power, maintaining a steady balance gets even more complicated. This is because power from these sources is inconsistent. Smart grids sense small imbalances faster, making adjustments so problems don't get larger. They use sensors to constantly measure the status of different parts of the grid and a series of devices that control the current flowing through different points. The sensors and controllers are run by computers that make automatic adjustments to maximize efficiency. Before going too deeply into how our electrification system could evolve, it helps to know where it started. The U.S.'s grid was born on September 4th, 1882 at 3 p.m. Thomas Edison himself threw the switch. He built the first central power plant in the country at 255-257 Pearl Street in New York City. The small grid it powered in Lower Manhattan initially served about 80 customers, providing electricity to 400 lights. Edison was devoted to direct current, or DC, where power flows in one direction, but his DC system had limitations because of its low voltage, which meant that the power station could only move current to lights up to a half-mile away. Famous inventor and scientist Nikola Tesla thought Edison was wrong. He pushed for an electric grid powered by alternating current, or AC, where power regularly flows back and forth across a line. AC grids are hard to set up because every generator has to be perfectly synchronized, producing electricity with equal frequency, voltage, and phase. The two would be locked for years in what was called War of the Currents. Tesla won in the end, aided by the invention of electrical transformers, which transform AC to a higher voltage for more efficient transport over long distances, and then reduce the voltage for safer household use. This was much harder to do with direct current. Most urban regions in the U.S. had power by around 1920. For the vast majority of rural Americans, this did not begin until the 1930s. Because it was so expensive to build power plants and lines, state governments let power companies form monopolies over large areas in exchange for connecting everyone to the grid. During World War I, when some cities overwhelmed their generation capacity with military production, regions started connecting their power systems to pool resources. That linking process continued until North America ended up with 5 power grids: Eastern, Western, Quebec, Alaska, and Texas, which chose to keep its grid separate. Starting in the 1970s, Congress began to open power lines to companies that could generate cheaper electricity, and many utilities started getting their power from more distant sources. The delivery chain was never built to handle these loads, and no one had an incentive to upgrade shared power lines. This became a big problem by the early 2000s. In 2003, overgrown tree branches knocked out some power lines in Ohio. The failure cascaded, and 50 million people lost power. That emphasized the need to improve real-time monitoring across the grid, which would help check for the warning signs of an impending blackout so the system could automatically prevent failures or contain them to small areas. In 2007, Congress called for developing a smart grid. Since then, it has spent billions of dollars on new infrastructure with the ultimate goal of fully deploying a smart grid system. In addition to more sensors and controllers, many smart grid models use a microgrid structure. This design can supply power to small communities while being interconnected to the larger network. When a line goes down, the microgrid around it can be isolated, so the blackout stays within that small area instead of cascading more widely. Smart grids may also incorporate new long-distance networks that use direct current, reversing the century-long dominance of AC. As engineers have found new ways to build high-voltage power lines, direct current has actually become more efficient over longer distances than before, and renewable energy sources tend to generate direct current anyway. More reliance on renewable energy also increases the need for big storage batteries that can quickly be turned on and off to balance supply and consumption, even when it's not sunny or breezy enough to meet demand. A smart grid, though, can only do so much. Engineers also need to make individual generators more resistant to disaster, especially because severe weather is happening more often thanks to climate change. Individuals can also make their homes more energy efficient. Smart grids do have some vulnerabilities. By connecting all of our electrical systems to computer networks, many of which are designed to be controlled remotely, security experts say we've placed ourselves at high risk for potentially disastrous cyber attacks. Russian hackers have managed to break into American power companies at least once, and utilities are still trying to figure out how extensively their systems may be compromised. But we shouldn't necessarily blame smart grids. Hackers can target generators even if they aren't directly connected to the internet. Once complete, the smart grid should be much more secure than our current infrastructure, given its focus on reliability and backup sources. Such grids promise a more reliable and economical electrical infrastructure hardened against outside threats. Our daily digital life has become even more power-hungry given the ever-increasing number of connected devices we use. Most of us probably don't think much about where that power comes from. Losing it suddenly and unexpectedly would come as quite a shock indeed.
Electricity grids power our everyday lives, but it's time they smartened up. Smart grids use digital technology to offer greater efficiency.
Plus, they put more renewables in the mix, paving the way for a cleaner future and leaving old power stations like this one in Greenwich far behind. Today, we look at 3 smart grid companies rewiring the energy future.
Coming up, we see a state-of-the-art smart grid cleaning up industry. Plus, we plug into a startup with global ambitions. And we switch over to smart decision-making.
And I travel to Singapore to find out the future of smart grid networks with Nilesh Y. Jadhav, CEO and founder of Chi Square.
But first of all, let's take a look at some facts and figures. Smart grid investments increased by 10% in 2018. Smart grid infrastructure goes hand in hand with smart meters. By 2020, it is expected that more than 800 million smart meters will have been installed. Instead of investing heavily in new infrastructure, it is estimated that by integrating smart appliances in more than 1 billion households by 2040, more than $270 billion will be saved. The potential of smart grids is clear, but they're just one part of the energy transition. In Lüdenscheid, Germany, there's a state-of-the-art factory putting all of the pieces together. ABB, the multinational technology company, has been around since the early days of electrification, having been founded in the late 19th century. Now, one of its main focuses is on digital transformation and enabling smart grid technologies to deliver energy where and when it's needed in an efficient way. With this in mind, it currently has over 1,085 patents and projects that are designed to offer solutions for smart grid problems that have arisen around the world.
Smart grids address one of the core challenges of the new grid of the future, which is both consumption, generation, and storage, all is happening in a small site. This location is a good demonstration of how ABB can manage all for a customer like a small manufacturing location, or for a utility who wants to provide these kinds of solutions to their customers.
The company says that digital energy management is key to ensuring safe, sustainable electrification, and it's put this theory into action by building a smart grid in a CO2 neutral and energy efficient factory. Green factories in themselves are not a revolutionary concept, but the smart grid at the core of this one highlights the power of connecting all areas of the energy system.
Hi, Debbie.
ABB's energy management system provides constant surveillance and optimum control of energy production, consumption, and storage. It works out the optimum energy flow on the basis of predictive data and compensates for deviations in real time. Plus, it operates in a largely autonomous way.
The system here in Lüdenscheid actually conserves resources by integrating the renewables and the energy that comes from the photovoltaic cells and linking that together with the battery storage system. If you actually look at the car park out there, we have about 7,600 square meters of photovoltaic cells as rooftops for the car park. And that would be equivalent to the usage of about 340 private households throughout an entire year.
Plus, there's a cogeneration plant, which is twice as energy efficient as a coal-fired power plant. Any surplus power is fed into the public grid, adding sustainably produced energy to the region's power supply.
What we want to do with our strategy is to demonstrate for our customers. How do you execute? How do you go to a carbon neutral location where there are 800 people working? A manufacturing site which consumes a lot of energy, but at the same time can be sustainable. On a sunny day, this location doesn't need to be connected to the grid. That's an example through actual implementation for our customers. Hopefully they can copy those examples, and for ABB, that's an opportunity to serve and make a difference in the world.
It's thought that the factory will save about 630 tons of CO2 a year, thanks to the digital energy management system. ABB's Ludenscheid site certainly shines light on the fact that it's possible for a complete industrial site to be fully functional as well as energy self-sufficient and CO2 neutral. So all this suggests that in order to manufacture a successful energy transition, smart grids must be pieced together with every element of an energy system. Whether it's a domestic or an industrial setting, your connections count.
Nilesh Y. Jadhav is CEO and founder of Chi Square. Prior to this, he was Senior Scientist and Program Director at the Energy Research Institute at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Nilesh, thank you so much for having us on this beautiful rooftop in Singapore. Now, as we've seen with ABB, there's a huge shift whereas energy consumers are now becoming producers, both in domestic and industrial settings. Now, what challenges does this pose, and how can smart grids help us deal with these challenges?
Yeah, I think smart grid opens up a few new dimensions to the traditional grid, and these dimensions are around
right. The reason I'm showing you guys this is because in order to appreciate what we have up against us is we have to know what's up against us. You guys know I don't agree with any of this shit. I'm all for technology, but there's no reason that they should be shutting off power. We have plenty of power if we would use the natural resources we have. That's how you know it's an agenda of control. Because when they're saying, well, we regulate and we use AI and we do all, we don't need any of that. Efficiency cannot, if efficiency leads to unreliability, it isn't efficient. That's the whole point. You can be efficient and also produce enough electricity for everything at a low cost. But remember, they don't do anything without looking because if they really wanted to, if the powers that be really wanted to lower energy costs, they could. Trump proved it. Trump had us way down on gas prices. Cheaper energy creates a stronger economy.
Around decarbonization, that is one. Secondly, around decentralization. Thirdly, around democratization of the grid. And also, lastly, but more importantly, digitalization of the grid. And as far as these four dimensions goes, they all play a part and they're interrelated in terms of how producers and consumers would behave in the market. And of course, they would have their own challenges linked to these four aspects.
Can you talk us through your recent research into smart grids and the integration of renewables into the energy mix?
So when you talk about smart grid technologies, there are two aspects to it. One is operational technology, or what's called the OT, and the information technology, what is called the IT. And smart grids often are a good merger of these two technologies. On the operations side, we are talking about research into grid management, integration of renewable energy, which tends to be intermittent. Solar is intermittent because of cloud cover, as well as not unavailability of the sun throughout the day. Wind energy is intermittent as well, and several other forms of renewable energy, which could be intermittent or variable, as we call them. They have to be integrated into the grid now, and that poses several operational challenges in terms of managing the entire grid. The other aspects of the technology is around information technology, which is about collecting data in the right way. So there we talk about advanced metering infrastructure, smart meters to collect the data. And at the same time, we talked about dissemination of the data and using the data to control the operations.
In your time as senior scientist and program director, what were the major developments in smart grids that you oversaw?
Smart grids have evolved over the last decade, I would say, in terms of both the operational technologies for grid management as well as the information technologies. So some of the research work that we saw coming out was around, for example, improving the operational efficiency of the grid by using the combination of AC/DC, alternating current, and direct current devices, which could make the transmission and the distribution lines much more efficient. So that's one. The second aspect was around integrating multiple forms of energy. We call it multiple energy systems, or smart multiple energy systems, which would talk about integrating the networks around gas, around electricity, and around thermal energy into one network, which could be seamless and improve the efficiency, overall efficiency much higher. The third big breakthrough I can talk about is around solid state transformers. These are devices that are used in the grid, more so in the smart grid, because they are able to have a two-way communication in terms of data as well as the power flow. And at the same time, they reduce drastically the cost and the space requirements of the grid.
Nilesh, thank you so much for that. Stay with us.
After the break, a startup aiming to start up an energy grid revolution. With strong connections, the power of smart grids can be electrifying. In Cologne, Germany, there's a company plugging into this potential. Envelio was founded as a startup in 2017 by a group of doctorate students at RWTH Aachen University. They'd spent over 5 years on dissertations, exploring how software and algorithms could be used in the planning and operation of energy networks. And then they realized their research could be worth a whole lot more than providing them with PhDs.
Our main aim at Envelio is to drive the digital transformation of energy grids forward, because actually that's a crucial step which is needed for successful energy transition. If we want to integrate renewables on a massive scale and also charging points into our energy system, then it doesn't work without a digital transformation of the grids.
The planning and operation of electricity grids is becoming increasingly complicated as millions of new solar panels, wind turbines, and even bioenergy plants come online. After all these different types of energy from geographically different areas need to be integrated into our current power grids.
The core challenge that we see at Envelio is that you actually need a good digital model of the grid before doing anything else with regard to smart grids. And with that core challenge, we help our customers by combining different data sources to actually get to a good digital twin of what we see in reality.
Envelio says it has developed a software system that aims to help distribution grid operators not only manage their workflows, but also to plan for an increased use of renewables. For instance, by accelerating the connection process for new wind parks and solar power plants.
Our intelligent grid platform is basically a digital operating system for grids. So that means we are digitizing planning and operation processes of grid operators with our platform, and we help them to become more efficient in those processes.
Historically, updating electricity distribution networks has been an expensive, lengthy, and time-consuming process, involving a lot of manual labor.
With our software, we are helping distribution system operators to integrate renewables faster in their grids and also be more direct with their customers. So, for example, we are providing an online quick check where grid customers can easily pinpoint a location on a map, enter the load or renewable source they want to connect to the grid there, and then just get a response whether it's possible or not within seconds, as of weeks as it is today.
For all the promise of smart grids, there are skeptics out there who say that all this new technology is unjustifiably expensive.
The energy grid infrastructure is actually one of the major cost drivers within our entire energy system. And we help to make the investment decisions in that infrastructure more efficient. So we help to cut down costs by up to 70%. And those savings will be shared between the grid operators as the ones responsible for the infrastructure and the society who has to pay less grid fees.
Envelio's story really does show the potential of intelligent networking. Thanks to the connections the team built at university, they've modernized parts of the electricity distribution networks in Germany and beyond, making them more efficient and ready to cope with the transition to renewables.
Nilesh, we're seeing companies such as Envelio working hard to help the electricity grid cope with the uptake in electric vehicles. In your view, what does this change in the transport sector mean for smart grids?
The transport sector is being revolutionized by electric vehicles. The electrification of the transport sector means a lot of changes to the grid. Firstly, the grid has to accommodate a lot of new electrical demand, which is put onto the grid. At the same time, it has to be utilizing the data of the electric vehicles, at what time they would charge, and how much load they are putting to the grid at the right time. This also offers some opportunities around technologies such as vehicle to grid, because electric vehicles have batteries and they could be used as portable storages that could be then put back to the grid in a time of crunch.
Can you talk us through the system-wide benefits smart grids have to offer?
Smart grids offer numerous benefits. I think mainly around the big ones around consumer participation. So suddenly now the consumer is empowered to participate in the grid by having much more information and data from the grid, as well as actively participate by producing energy, becoming a prosumer, and generating energy on his own home or a factory and putting it back to the grid. So that's one key benefit. There are also benefits around consumer participation that can incentivize consumers to help reduce their peak demand. And that offers a big support for the central distribution or the central production system in the grid, because then you can actually defer your investments into peak plants or energy generating plants which produce energy at the peak. And because of that, there's a huge savings in investment as well as operating and running cost. So that's another big benefit. The other big benefit I would think about is flexibility. For example, in terms of adoption of decarbonized or low carbon technologies, as well as electric vehicles. That gives a big flexibility in terms of managing your transportation as well as decarbonizing the electrical network.
Can you tell us about your involvement in writing the technology primers on smart grids and solar technologies for the National Climate Change Secretariat?
The technology primers were commissioned as a study to investigate the impacts, the benefits, as well as the relevance for different technologies such as the smart grids and solar technologies for Singapore. In effect, the study involved benchmarking different technologies around the world, all the different activities which are happening in terms of test bedding as well as active integration and implementation of smart grids and solar. And it also involved calculations of the key measures for Singapore, for example, the reduction of carbon emissions.
Thank you so much for that, Nilesh. Stay with us. Now, thought you knew everything there is to know about smart grids? Here's one common misconception.
You thought you knew? Think again. Myth. The increase in electric vehicles will put too big a strain on electricity grids. Fact. By implementing simple reforms and using smart technology, the grid can easily cope with an EV increase. Based on e-mobility in Germany, researchers say that EV growth could add around 1% increase in the total power demand through to 2030, requiring around 5 extra gigawatts of generation capacity. Vehicle-to-grid, V2G, services are expected to provide invaluable support by communicating with the system to return unused electricity, for which consumers could get paid to store electricity, and to turn off EV charging at peak times. After the break, we flash forward to the future for a whole new smart grid overview. As the energy sector progresses into new futuristic territory, electricity grids will have to follow suit. In Lyon, France, there's a startup speeding up that process. For companies like Cosmotech, data is key. The information helps to develop software platforms that can enable energy companies and decision makers, utilities and the transport sector to understand, design and operate their systems. The data gathered is also then analyzed to help make more sustainable business decisions in the future. Cosmos means the universe seen as a well-ordered whole. And that's how most businesses and grids would like to operate. But it's not that easy. There are various departments and stakeholders making decisions unilaterally. So sometimes it's impossible for one person to see the effect of their decisions on the whole system. Could the answer lie in a system that relies on augmented intelligence? That is technology that combines the best of human expertise with artificial intelligence.
Augmented intelligence is at the core of our technology. In order to anticipate in a complex and uncertain world, you can't rely on past data or data science only. You need to combine this with the expertise, the collective expertise within the company. And it's by combining data science and collective expertise that you can build enterprise digital twins of the problems you are addressing, and then simulate to see the evolution of these systems over time and anticipate what might happen.
Smart grid infrastructure that delivers energy where it's needed, on demand, is full of promise, but it comes at a price. So it's vital that it's built to last.
All system operators globally are faced with the same challenges. The first one is that their infrastructure are aging. They were all installed post-World War II, and they are now due for replacement. The second one is the emergence of renewable energies on the grid, and it's placing a lot of pressure, a lot of constraints on operators. The third one is that they need to act now, because the consequences of their decision will impact not only the short term, but the mid and long term.
Digital twinning has emerged as a major new approach to help design and maintain products. By mapping a physical asset into a digital platform, operators can see future stresses and avoid them, helping to improve efficiencies and prolong life cycles. So imagine if you can do that at the enterprise level to entire systems like the power grid.
If you are a grid operator willing to consider grid developments, you will represent in your digital twin your infrastructures, so your assets, your line, your towers, but you also need to represent how your business operates and the impact of your operation on your assets. So that's where it's getting sophisticated, it's getting complex, and that's what we can do with our digital twin technology, which combine at the same time data and human expertise.
So, by combining innovative technology and a futuristic new level of intelligence, it looks like smart grids could soon have the brain capacity to deal with renewable energy, however intermittent, and deliver it where it's needed, on demand, all while being energy efficient.
As we saw with Cosmotech, augmented intelligence is playing an important role in smart grids. What role do you think augmented intelligence will play in smart grids in the future?
Augmented intelligence, I like the word augmented intelligence compared to artificial intelligence, because that tells us that there is still a lot of expertise, human expertise that can be brought in. And as traditional as the grid industry is, we need a lot of expertise that has been captured over the years to be brought forth. But there's a lot of data now available in the smart grids due to the smart meters that we have, due to the sensors and all the IoT, IT technologies that we put forth. So how do we use that data in the right way and augment the expertise of the people who are operating the grid, or who are managing the grid, who are distributing the electricity in the grid? So that's the big thing about augmented intelligence. It will help a lot in terms of making decisions and making the right decisions at the right time.
In your view, do the benefits of smart grids outweigh the significant investment needed to put them into place?
I would say definitely yes. The benefits on smart grids are at the sectorial level. Not only are we talking about improving the efficiency of the grid, improving the efficiency of operations through better operation technologies and data management, but we're also talking about decarbonization. We're also talking about decentralization. So that gives us possibilities which were not possible in the past. New opportunities are coming up. There will be a lot of help provided by smart grids on the environmental impact reduction and as well as efficiency and productivity. For example, by using smart meters, you can be much more productive in the market. While the job has to be done by a few people, it will be now done by nobody at all. We could have meters which could be read automatically, and the data could be transmitted securely to the places where it is required to be.
Why do you think it's taken so long to modernize and update the intelligence levels of the electricity network?
The electricity networks are quite set up for quite a long time now, more than 50, 100, even 200 years ago. They are legacy systems. The technology is not so easy to be upgraded to the latest digital technologies. And that's one of the key factors that is actually hampering the speedy update of smart grids. Because grids are really stretched out. You can't really find one place to go and change a particular substation or particular line and get the right information out of the grid from the spots. At the same time, the consumer level grid is also quite spaced out, and there has to be adoption from the consumer side for it to work well for the entire system.
What do you think are the key contributions Singapore is making to shape the smart grids of the future?
Singapore is in a very unique position because it does not have access to a lot of renewable technologies. The only option is solar photovoltaics, which has been implemented now, but it's also limited due to the space availability in Singapore. Having said that, Singapore is also doing a lot of work in terms of test bedding and trying out new smart grid technologies, such as advanced meter infrastructure. Singapore has been implementing smart meters over the past few years. Also, it has liberalized its electrical network and the electricity market. So every consumer now in Singapore has access to multiple sources of electricity. You can go to any retailer and can sign up with multiple retailers if he wishes to. So this way, Singapore has liberalized the market, at the same time looking at technologies which are helping the smart grid in terms of demand response capabilities and making the system, the operating technologies even smarter for the future. And the last thing I would say is that the integration of information technology. The devices such as the Internet of Things devices, IoT devices, those have to be integrated and the data has to be managed in the right way. So these are the key things that Singapore is now working on to be able to make the grid smarter for the future and prove as a test ground or a ground for trying out new technologies.
Thank you so much for that, Nilesh. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
So it seems it's high time smart grids smartened up the energy landscape. Renewables are on the rise. More and more electric vehicles are taking to the roads. Meanwhile, savvy energy consumers are demanding energy efficiency and lower costs.
And all that requires rewiring with innovation. But that seems to be a process which is well underway. Next time, we'll step into some of the world's most sustainable buildings to discover new technology that's laying the foundation for greener and cleaner construction.
Join the discussion. Send us your questions for our next energy expert.
Okay. We have to anticipate where this is going, right? All of the nodes that they're talking about, you always hear the smart refrigerator, the smart washer dryer, the smart light bulb. But they never tell you about what they're doing to the laptops. They never tell you that along with your light bulbs reporting, and right up here, right, Rick had a great point. I logged in to pay our electric bill, and I saw a link that said, want to know what you're using? Click here. It gave me percentages for lights, appliances, etc. I was like, wait, how would they know that? How they know that is the microchip in each of those. are reporting back to the power grid via the electric lines. That's the new plugs they're using. Where are they? That's these new plugs that if you've used one of these newer plugs, right, they use them for cameras now, they use them for microphones now, and they use them for what else? The power supply. That's the secret. The secret is they're getting the information through the power lines and not through Wi-Fi or telephone lines. They don't tell you that your laptop communicates, just like how they said in these videos. Someone said, is that USB-C? Yes, yes. That's what they're not telling people, is that how, just like how they said in the video, there's a reason I show you guys these videos so that you can hear it directly from their mouth. They said that they can shut off people's power automatically. Well, if they can shut off your power, they can also control your laptop. That's the dirty little secret. They can remote in to your laptop and your computer with this technology, totally going around your operating system and going directly to the chip, because the chip relies on power. The power is the same line that powers the chip in your laptop, is the same line that they're connected to in the outlet. So your laptop doesn't even have to be on for them to gain access to it. They can turn it on and off. They can control the camera on or off, as long as it's plugged in. This is what they don't tell you about the smart grid. They just tell you about light bulbs, refrigerators, microwaves. That's why I'm trying to tell everybody, CALIX Solutions is it. We're the only company trying to get ahead of this. You hear any other computer or television maker saying, nope, we respect your privacy. No, they don't say anything. Don't let the people know. My friends, the choice is simple. It's either CALIX or nothing, because everything is going this direction. Everything. CALIX is the only company trying to fight this. You think I just willy-nilly opened a laptop company? That, hell with it. Let's just make some laptops. But laptops ain't my gig, man. But freedom is. That's what we're doing. Is we are the resistance on all fronts. That means we have to fight on all fronts. Whether they come by land, sea, or air, whether they come by refrigerator, laptop, or light bulb, everything's being weaponized against the freedom movement. CALIX Solutions, I want to grow it where we literally build our own computers. And we have a CALIX laptop where we build it with American-made chips and American-made products. That's a good joke. Hang on. Pretty soon my fridge will be throwing ice cubes at my head. No doubt. All right, guys and gals. Like I told you guys, I actually talked with Dave over at X22. And I told him, hey, this is what's going on. And he's like, let's get you on. I said, okay, let's roll. Oh, absolutely. Whatever you make, Ben, make sure it lasts longer than 2 years. Yeah, no doubt. Technology is a hard market, man. It moves so fast. It's like cryptos. You gotta stay plugged in or you get left behind. It's crazy. All right, everyone, have a great shoot. We've actually been going for 50 minutes. All right, love you guys. Tomorrow's a travel day. I'm heading up to, I get to hang out with Debbie. See you soon, Deborah. Life's getting crazy, folks. Have a great day. Love you guys. Bye-bye.